Greetings, colleagues and distinguished guests, and thank you to Namisa for having me here. It's a real privilege and a pleasure to be here and part of this discussion and to hear some of the other panelists and speakers. I'm going to speak briefly about the role of new technologies, skills for new technologies and digital skills in government work. To make sense of this very broad area of inquiry, area of policy, and area of action. So I'll speak essentially about the scoping of the issues, looking at some of the tech, teasing out how this pans out in some of the sectors and the different arenas in which discussions are taking place, and also look at the role of Namisa in all this. The tech solutions that are under discussion have already been unpacked to some degree at this conference. We've heard the kind of technologies that people are asking questions about. It's artificial intelligence, digitalization, advanced manufacturing, use of social media, and those technologies we're all broadly aware of. And that creates a broad scope because each of these technologies has distinct dynamics when it comes to government work. Another area to think of in terms of scoping is sectoral, because the different sectors are each characterized by different roles of government. And this has also been addressed in this conference, including some of the members of this panel. And we need to think differently in each of these sectors. For example, the health sector is a huge public sector employer. And the kind of technologies that are appropriate are things like artificial intelligence for diagnosis and epidemiology, or the digital management of hospitals and clinics, the digital management of health records. That's a broad area. The area of energy and environment is huge. For example, satellite tracking to keep track of climate change or water use or pollution, as well as the introduction of renewable energies. The education sector is distinct, as well as being a very big employer of the state. We have issues such as the introduction of coding at schools, and a key question of the alignment between the skill supply that emerges out of the education sector and the skills demand that is made by technological change. The creative sector is really important. For example, production technologies, the security sector, also a large public sector employer, can use these technologies for safety and security. Here, privacy issues emerge, the issues of AI ethics in relation to surveillance. There's military applications. The financial sector, AI and cryptocurrency have become very important. And of course, across the entire portfolio of the economic development sector, such as agriculture and manufacturing, and that list can go on and on. And I think the point is made that it is diversity that characterizes this debate rather than overarching conclusions that can be drawn. Now, cutting across all these sectors, the debates about the future of government work also play out in different arenas. And by that, I mean different discursive spaces. So one, for example, is local government service delivery. How do we get technology to really be of benefit in this space? And this is a space that's under-resourced and in some cases only just coping with the existing systems that we have. There's an administrative level to this question. There's a policy level to this question. What national government or provincial or even local government policies do we need to think about, and how do we do the research to underpin these policies? There's the R&D level. In other words, how are we producing or absorbing the technologies that are needed? And there's the political level, which is mobilizing policy support and funds for all this. And from a different point of view, there's an ideological level where people take normative positions about what kind of outcomes they consider to be right or wrong when implementing these technologies or trying to develop the capabilities for that. So each of these different sectors and arenas creates a distinct kind of discussion, and it really underscores the breadth of the debate that's on the table right now and the important role of NAMISA in making sense of all these and for ultimately supporting the kinds of skills development that is needed in the different sectors and being part of the conversations that are happening at all these different levels. And that's a tough job. And it's been good to hear some constructive approaches to this in the conference. The kinds of debates that are happening, the first, I think, is the identification of technological opportunities. And the Department of Communication and Digital Technologies and other government departments have been active in this with their partners. So looking at the benefits, the risks, the potential impact, these are important tasks, especially thinking about the impacts on employment, for example, when considering automation. A really substantive issue is that of the capabilities for using the technologies. Technology without the capability for using and maintaining it sustainably is unlikely to have an impact. And this is where the skills development mandate of the NISA is really critical. So when thinking about the technological change, it's always important to consider what capability development would be required, what training pipelines are required, but also issues like infrastructure, licensing, regulation or deregulation. Then looking more broadly at the stakeholder level, in any example of technological change, there's support and there's resistance. So the question is raised, what kind of support or resistance might any new technological application face? From who and why? And how might it be addressed? So the issue of change management is critical, and that's also on the table. Then when it comes to government work, I think we need to look squarely at the political implications. For example, at the local government level, we can imagine that new technology could cut off opportunity for rent-seeking behavior. What if it undermined some actors' political and patronage power? For example, making payment systems more transparent or digitalizing relationships that were previously offline. So if that creates a disincentive that needs to be surfaced and acknowledged and dealt with. There are other cases where there's political implications. For example, if a new technology makes some employment positions redundant, how is this going to be managed? Again, a labor issue. So the point I'm trying to make is that there's a political benefit and a political cost to new technologies. And in government work, we can imagine that this may well be the major impediment to technological change. Also, it's important to recognize that technology is not normatively neutral. And this is especially true where it impacts on labor markets. Digitalization that eliminates jobs or artificial intelligence that isn't ethically governed. There's a lot of areas where the principles and the ethics of these technologies are being questioned and where they're up for debate. So as technology filters more into government work, it seems to me that contestations like this are more likely to take on ideological characteristics. So having unpacked a little bit the kind of complexity that we're dealing with, and looking across all of these areas of application and the discussions that are there, how can we draw out some of the common issues at the intersection of technological change on the one hand, and government work on the other, and what could the role of NAMISA be there, or what has the role of NAMISA been? Overall, as has been discussed in other parts of this conference, that it is important to take context into account. There's a technological context, but also a sectoral, political, and ideological context. And NAMISA plays an important role in terms of scoping these issues and supporting the appropriate training and capability development in line with the realistic assessment of the needs and opportunities across this broad spectrum. And critical to this is the constructive engagement with stakeholders, primarily the public sector, the various government departments that are responsible for these areas of government work, but also the private sector and civil society and the research community. Thanks.